Alright, welcome audience. So today I will be presenting about the case that I choose, and then the theory, and then the reasons why the theory is suitable with the case. So I choose case number 6. A student receives an F on a test. He protests his grade and is adamant about your changing his grade or allowing him to retake the exam. You stand firm in your position and tell him that there are no mix up or extra credits. His tone becomes increasingly aggressive. He calls you, he emails you, and he waits for you after class. So, in my opinion, the method that suitable, I mean the theory that suitable for this case is culturally responsive classroom management. Based on one of the journals that I've read, Elementary Education, Theory and Practice, that's the title of the journal. And here are some quotes that are said there. Culturally responsive teaching is a teaching method that empowers students intellectually, socially, emotionally, and politically by using their unique cultural references to transfer knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Latson Billings 2009. This approach can give teachers the tools they need to successfully educate their students and build strong personal relationships that welcome diverse thinking and behavior. The essence of culturally responsive classroom management is the teacher's ability to understand equality and justice. Dus Curry 2017. And then another uh, another cheat, culturally responsive classroom management eliminates common behaviorist practices such as punishment and reward systems, and instead aims to create a caring and collaborative community of learners. The goal of classroom management is not to make students obey, but to create an environment of cultural synchronization where all students are given equal opportunities to learn. Weinstein et al. 2004, Amdin 2016. And the last one from Weinstein et al. 2003 summarize the principles of culturally responsive classroom management as follows: develop knowledge of students' culture, build relationship with students, use culturally appropriate communication processes, communicate clearly the expectations that are implemented routinely. And several reasons why I choose this theory. Um, the first one, to prioritize positive and relaxed communication relationships. So in this case, the student felt frustrated and aggressive. Therefore, I think it is important to build a strong and trusting relationship. By prioritizing relationships like this, teachers can create an environment that allows for open communication and constructive collaboration. Students will also be more communicative about the problems that cause them to become like that, which will help us to providing solutions and support to them. And the second one, respect individual uniqueness, because each student has unique needs, backgrounds, and learning tastes. A responsive classroom management approach that recognizes this diversity and adapts learning approaches to suit individual student needs is, in my opinion, very suitable for handling this case. In this case, understanding a student's perspective and responding with empathy and openness is an all-encompassing part of respecting a student's individual uniqueness. But we need to remember that we only need to understand their condition and then respond with empathy, not spoil them with giving them a second chance. And the last one, encourage student empowerment. Uh, a responsive classroom management approach is not only about the teacher being in control, but also about empowering students in their learning process. the teacher maintains consistency in implementing class rules and policies while remaining responsive to student needs. The teacher, the teacher provides an example of the importance of responsibility, fairness, and cooperation in the classroom environment. This is all so that they know and get used to the fact that the rules exist and are not to be violated. If they are used to being given second chance, um, they will think that the rules are easy to ignore. Then, if other students know that there is a second chance like this in a rule, no one will definitely comply with the rule. But in my opinion, it is very important to make this rule written or printed so that it is easier to apply for those who see it. The prohibitions are also included with, clearly there. So move to the next task. I choose chapter 2, choosing rules and procedures. So there are several points or subtopics in here. And the first one is why rules and procedures are needed. Rules establish general expectations or standards for student behavior. They create a framework for a positive and productive learning environment. When rules are positively stated, such as you may talk when given permission, they encourage students to engage in acceptable behaviors rather than focusing on prohibiting negative ones. Procedures are specific guidelines that outline how students are expected to behave during particular activities or routines. These procedures help students understand what is expected of them in various classroom situations, ensuring that the classroom runs smoothly and efficiently. The second subtopics is planning classroom rules and procedures. So in here there are again several points that included. So the first one is identify school rules and procedures. Begin by familiarizing yourself with the overarching rules and procedures set by the school. This helps ensure consistency and alignment with the broader school environment. Second one, number of rules. Limit the number of classroom rules to around 5. This is sufficient to cover most behaviors without overwhelming students. Consider involving students in the creation of these rules to encourage buy-in and adherence. Examples of essential rules include bring all needed materials to the class, be in your seat and ready to work when the bell rings, respect and be polite to all people, respect other people's property, obey all school rules. Next one, consequences. Clearly define and communicate the consequences for not following rules. Ensure that these consequences are fair, consistent, and appropriate for the behavior. The next subtopics, general procedures. Again, there are several sub point again. So the first one is beginning of the period. Attendance. Use a seating chart, to take attendance quickly. Keep track of missing work for absent students. Um, absences. Have a system where students write their name and date on handouts, which are then placed in a absent folder. Maintain a calendar with daily assignments and have student volunteers help returning students catch up. Tardy students. Implement a consistent procedures for tardy students, such as signing in on a seat. Expected behavior. Start the period with warm-up questions or activities. Have students copy the outline of class activities to focus their attentions. Leaving the room. Allow leaving the room only for emergencies. Keep a record of exits and consider reducing credit for work not brought to class due to frequent absences. And then, use of materials and equipment. Clearly define how both teachers and students should handle materials and equipment to avoid confusion and ensure proper usage. The last one, end of the period. Allocate allocate time for students to clean up materials and remind them of upcoming assignments or work. Next subtopic, procedures during sheet work and instruction. Again, with three subpoints. The first one is student attention during presentations. Require respectful listening and active note-taking during presentations to keep students engaged. And participation. Establish that students should raise their hands to speak or ask questions, ensuring orderly participation. And sheet work. Talk among students. Decides on a policy for student talk during sheet work, such as no talking or quiet talk. Help requests. Students should raise their hands when they need help. Out of seat procedures. Allow students to leave their seats for specific reasons, such as sharpening pencils or getting paper, and enforce a one at a time rule. Last one, completed work. Provide enrichment activities or allow students to work on homework once they finish their assignments. Okay, next point, procedures for group work. First one, distribution of materials. Set up stations or assign helpers to distribute materials efficiently, and assigning students to the groups. Create well-balanced groups by considering students' abilities and personalities. Aim to separate classing personalities and form groups that work well together. Outlining goals and roles. Clearly outline the goals of the group work and assign specific roles, e.g., recorder, leader, to ensure active participation and accountability. Last one, cooperative learning. Encourage cooperative learning strategies to promote teamwork and collaboration among students. The last subtopics, miscellaneous. The first one is signals. Use specific signals such as turning off the lights or ringing a bell to obtain students' attentions and facilitate transitions between activities. The last one, announcement and special procedures. And in here, it said have clear procedures for handling announcements, special equipment use, fire drills, and split lunch periods. Ensure students know what to do with their work and personal belongings during these times. So, by thoughtfully implementing these rules and procedures, teachers can create a structured and positive classroom environment that supports students' learning and minimizes disruptions. Alright, that's all for my presentation. I'm so sorry if my camera is keep like this, and thanks for listening. Bye bye.